All right, I think we are live, ready to get started for one of the last sessions this afternoon at Blackbaud Dev Days. My name is Jackie Huffman. I'm a senior process engineer here at Blackbaud. I've been with the company about 16 years, started in product development, working on All-True and BBCRM, then moved into finance where I helped with our Salesforce implementation and now work in business operations on the operational excellence team, helping lead process improvement here internally at Blackbaud. And getting to share some best practices with you all is one of my favorite things to do. I thought this topic of using prioritization tools might be helpful after you may have attended the keynote session this afternoon, Ashima's session on innovate, generate, and elevate ideas, where she even encouraged you to do brainstorming that could generate 100 ideas in an hour. What would you possibly do with all of those ideas? So I hope I'm going to share some techniques with you that can help you navigate the world of all of the possibilities and ideas that you've learned here at BB Dev Days. So our agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about why it's important to prioritize improvements, and then I'm going to give you a couple tools to do that. Just to set your mind at ease, I have had the team upload in the Documents tab to the right of the chat the PowerPoint presentation, as well as an Excel file that I'll be demoing today that you are welcome to take and use with you after this session. All right, here we go. Why prioritize improvements? So while there can be many different reasons to prioritize improvements, one of the most important is to ensure that your ideas align to the strategic objectives, either of your department or your organization. What is your goal and your vision for your future state, whether it's for internal or external stakeholders? It's a very important concept in Lean Six Sigma, is making sure the work we do is aligned to our corporate strategies. The other reason we want to take time to prioritize is we want to make sure that the idea that we're going to implement is worth the time and effort. It may be something that's simple for you as a developer to implement, but we want to make sure that's weighed against the benefit the organization's going to receive. And then most important, we want to consider rationale for why employees or your internal staff members or your external constituent and donors might want to have something improved. Another key principle in Lean Six Sigma is that we want to make sure that anything that we're doing to improve our constituent and donor experience is prioritized. That's why we exist, to serve that audience. And so ensuring that we're working on items that align to their needs and eliminating their pain points is very important. Another big reason to think about prioritizing before you jump in on starting a project is, no matter whether you're just thinking about your time, you are going to spend resources at your organization, which are very valuable, and that's people's time. And we know that our time equals money. We want to make sure that the ideas that you're going to implement consider not only the technical product development cycle of planning, designing, implementing, testing the solution, but also the time it takes to enable the people that you've impacted with the change, making sure they're aware the change is coming. Do they have all of the enablement, the FAQs that they need about the change? How are we going to look at adopting and making sure people are following the new processes and workflows that you're anxious to go design? So because people's time does equal money, we want to make sure that we're using good decision making and prioritizing these ideas. So one point I want to make about this presentation, this is assuming you are not the single decision maker. These techniques are very useful for group decision making or team input. So if you think about who might have decision rights, it could be the group of people that you're going to impact, your stakeholders. Is it a group of fundraisers? Is it people in the finance office? Is it donors and your constituents? But if you are to interview and get them to participate in the decision-making process of what you're going to work on, you've already overcome one of the most important change management principles, which is getting stakeholder buy-in to leading the charge, right? So when we have input into decision-making, we are more likely to get on board with the changes. The other benefit for involving others in the decision-making is it really allows for diverse perspectives and increases the collaboration across your team. Now, you may be thinking, well, if I have a large team of 5 to 7 people, it might take a long time to get all their input, and maybe the squeaky wheel always gets the idea voted on. These group decision-making processes will take that out of there, and I will share with you how quick and easy it actually can be to use these tools. So the 2 tools that you'll see in the Excel file attached there in the documents are multi-voting, which is the simplest form. It really just takes a list of ideas, and then you add columns for all the different people on the team that are going to vote, and everybody is given votes, they vote, and you get a rank ordered list. The difference with the prioritization matrix on the right, it allows for more objective criteria. So you're evaluating each idea across a couple of criteria like business impact and ease to implement. If you would, in chat, share, has anyone used these types of tools in your organization already? Is this something new, or have you used these types of tools before? Curious to see that in the chat. New, great. Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in here. And we're going to go over multi-voting. Multi-voting is one of my favorite quick and dirty tools, easily done in Excel. But the benefit is it gives you the rank ordered list of improvement ideas. And again, it's really good at driving the group to consensus in a way that everyone can have input. So if you took Ashima's advice and you end up with 100 items on your list, it could take a long time to go through that process to prioritize those ideas. This technique will make that much easier, even if you do have 100 ideas you want to prioritize. So again, it works really well to get stakeholder input, whether it's your project team, your Scrum team, your internal stakeholders. That's where you want to focus on getting a team of people to help you prioritize all of these ideas. It really does allow all participants to share their opinion, and it's very quick and easy to execute. If anybody has ever used an idea bank like Blackbaud's product idea banks, you've done a form of multi-voting. those idea banks allow you to put the idea in and then your peers to vote on them and rank order the ideas. And we do here at Blackbaud use those idea banks to implement new product features. So the steps here to conduct multi-voting, pretty straightforward. Either you're going to do a brainstorming session and then do the multi-voting, or you may already be coming away from BB Dev Days with your whole list of ideas ready to go. So you list out the options, and then you're going to limit the number of votes people get by taking the total count, dividing it by 3. Prior to this session, I started to ask myself, I wonder why they divide by the number 3. And I tried to do some research and I couldn't find the reason, but it's a very standard industry practice that you take the list, divide by 3. I actually just did this exercise with a group of leaders at Blackbaud. And the first thing somebody did was we had like 10 ideas, divide by 3. It was going to give everybody 3 votes. And they're like, can't we just have 5 votes? And I said, well, the recommendation is divide by 3, because what it's doing is forcing that individual to make that prioritization when they're having to spend their very important votes. After everyone votes silently, you give them time, then you tally up the votes and the tool will give you the rank ordered list at the end. So this is what it looks like. A couple tips here on using this tool is in that column where you are describing your idea, I would use much more detailed descriptions than the short phrases you see here. So this is actually not a great example. And the reason for that is you want the idea to stand alone so people can read it and really understand what it is. And then in the columns, you will put each person's name or initials, depending on whether that's important to you. And then the row at the bottom is important to ensure everyone spent their number of votes equally. And then column K is where you can sort it largest to smallest. Yeah, Nicole, I like your comment that you've done this before, but using stickers. And back in the good old days, before Blackbaud was a remote company, we used to have big process improvement workshops, and we would do this exact thing, but we would have big poster boards up on the wall with all of our ideas. And then we either give people a marker or stickers to go vote, same technique, limiting the number of votes, and then we would tally it. But now that we're remote, we've gone to using this Excel tool. So some facilitation tips for using multi-voting. It is important that the ideas that you're going to vote on are at least around a similar theme. It may be that you're focusing on fundraiser productivity or some other business problem. You want to make sure that the ideas are related in some way and that you really state your business problem before you do the voting. The next thing to do is make sure you discuss each item in the list in good detail, update the details in the Excel file so there's a good description. This is really important. If you get over 20 ideas, people may not remember all the details associated. So updating the concept with details about what the idea is and what impact it might have would be very helpful. Before the workshop, if you're going to be the facilitator, set up your file in advance, add the columns, and then when you're ready, calculate the number of votes. Give people 5 to 10 minutes to spend their votes. Usually you want to take a little bit of break after that part so you can rank order the list and then come back. And most importantly, discuss what you're going to do with your new prioritized list. So let me pause here. Any questions about using multi-voting? before we move on. And feel free, you can just do that in chat. Both Steve and I are monitoring the chat, but pause here for any questions before we go on to the next tool. All right, well, the second tool I'm going to introduce you to is called a prioritization matrix, or a 2x2 matrix. And the difference between this and multi-voting is this one makes the decision-making process a little more objective. So multi-voting, people are voting based on their opinion. How much do I think this idea is going to solve the business problem? This tool brings defined criteria to use in scoring each idea. So it helps bring some data to the business problem. And then the output is what's really important here. Based on the scoring, the ideas will be populated into one of 4 quadrants. Starting in the upper left there, you'll have the things that you should go do. Those are your quick wins. They are high business impact and low level of effort to implement. Aside from that is the parking lot. These are really high impact, but also really high level of effort to implement. Now, a parking lot doesn't mean you're not going to go and do it. It just means it's likely to require more approvals, resources that aren't readily within your control, maybe a full project plan, those kinds of things. So parking lot doesn't mean go do it. It just means you're going to probably have to do a lot more planning around it. In the bottom right, this is probably the most important quadrant. Don't do's. These are items that have very low business impact and they're very hard to do. And I would guarantee that most of you have had an experience where there was something implemented, you thought it was going to be well received or done, and then come to find out you didn't get the adoption, you didn't get the business impact. So those are what we want to avoid. Remember, we're focused on spending people's time and energy wisely. So we want that biggest bang for our buck, which is your go-dos and your quick wins. The maybe category, that is one where if you have time, maybe it's a nice to have, depends on capacity, depends maybe on how close to the go-do category it is, whether or not you'll actually implement that. But that's probably the third level of thing that you would look at. So again, using this prioritization matrix, it really provides that objective criteria to evaluate each idea. And it makes sure that you don't just do pet projects and favorite ideas, because you really are looking at the value the idea is going to bring. And ultimately, it'll help you quickly isolate those improvements that will give you the biggest business outcome. So here at Blackbaud, the standard categories that we use using this tool generally are around business impact and ease of implementation. Now, those 2 categories can have lots of different meanings, so it's important to think about what they might mean in context of the business problem you are solving. But on business impact, a score of 1 would be little to no real business impact based on your problem statement. A 10 would be very significant. Ease of implementation, again, a 1 is very easy, and a 10 is very challenging or complex. So those 2 scales are actually kind of the inverse of each other. Business impact, the higher, the better. With ease of implementation, the lower, the better, the faster you can get it implemented. So before you do this exercise, you'll want to clearly define what business impact means in your scenarios before you score it. So if you're looking at internal productivity and saving time by automating workflows for your staff, is the value in the time savings? So if you can estimate how much time might be saved, you would maybe come up with some scale. So something maybe less than 5 minutes would be low impact, something over 30 minutes, high impact. Potentially, you might be looking at reducing errors in workflow. Maybe categorization is a problem between the fundraising and the finance office, and you're preparing solutions to that. So you're looking at error rate, which idea will have a more of a likelihood to reduce those errors. On the ease of implementation, you can either define this in terms of days. How long might it take to implement? Remember, implementation is also the training and communication and enablement of the people impacted. You can use the number of people. Is this change going to impact just one segment of our donors, or is it going to impact everyone? So the scope of the ease of implementation might be based on the number of people that you have to train, or it might be a rating of a simple technology solution, like so many of the ideas here were low code, those kinds of ideas that could be very easy, up to other solutions that require more code or involve multiple systems. So again, there's flexibility within the framework, and it's important to take time to divide this up or define this before you get started in voting. So really the steps are pretty straightforward. You're going to brainstorm and list your ideas there in column B. The numbering system in column A happens all automatically, and that populates over on the grid on the right. And then the difference here is you're going to rate each row on both criteria first before you move on to the second row. And then after you rate the second row, you'll want to do some comparison. Does idea number 2, is it really harder or easier to implement than idea 1? So as you kind of are training the team on the technique, you'll want to do some comparison to the answers above, just to make sure that you're kind of getting the data directionally correct. Again, before scoring each idea, it's really important to have the person that's talking about the idea explain it, discuss what they think the impact is going to be and how likely it might, or what the level of effort is to implement it. So the more discussion that happens, then your audience that's going to vote will have the context and be able to more easily assess the scoring that they want to give it. So the facilitation tips for this exercise are, you will again start with the first item in the list and ask the group to rate how much impact this idea will have on the given business problem. And we like to do this in Teams or the chat that you have here today. It allows everyone in the group to provide an answer. And I, as the facilitator, would be able to scroll and check whether we have consensus right off the bat. If not, then we're going to do the next 2 steps. We're going to ask the person that has a low number explain why, and the person that has a higher number explain why. And then we may need to revote to drive to that consensus. Now, we're not looking for averages. Like, I don't have to take each number and throw it in a calculator and get to an average. You can kind of ballpark it by just reviewing the spread of the answers, because we really just want to get directionally correct, and we want to make sure the items in the chart compare to each other. And then again, when you're done, you'll end up with the different quadrants that will tell you where your quick wins are. All right. Please tell me I was sharing the screen. All right, because now I want to stop sharing. And there we go. It's on the last slide. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing the slides. Hopefully, Stephen, that worked okay. And now I'm going to show you the Excel template by sharing my screen. All right, now, Steve and I already did some testing, and we know this view looks horrible in the cold cast, but there's a trick.
Hey, Jackie?
Yes.
Before you go on, there's a question from Amy. Can you ask the group to rate the business impact, but score it yourself for ease of implementation? Because the group I'd be asking would have no idea what it would take to implement some of our ideas. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so great question, Amy, there. The other thing that you could do is then, if I were doing that, I would have the group score the business impact, maybe take a break. You go off during the break and score the answer to ease of implementation, and then come back and show them the results. So if I were laying out my agenda in the and how to do that, certainly you could do that as well, for sure. So yeah, great question there. So I know that this slide here, this Excel file is hard to see. If you hover over the middle of your screen right next to E and V, and there's a little arrow, there's a full screen option that will make this tool show what I'm sharing much easier to see. And also, as a reminder, I have put this file for you in the documents. So you have 4 tabs here. 2 are instructions and 2 are the actual tool. And again, you have the slides now, which are much better instructions than the brief ones I've given you here. But this way you've got it all together. So you have the multi-voting instructions, and then the multi-voting template, which is here. So you list your ideas, lots of description, put your names, calculate the totals. You've got over here in columns O and P, you'll see the ability to enter the number of ideas. It divides it by 3 so you can get the number of votes. This one's pretty simple, straightforward. And then priority matrix instructions is next. So again, I put some quick and dirty instructions in here, but you also have the slides. And then the last tab is the prioritization matrix here as well. So that is the tool I have for you. Now, the reason I asked for this to be a skills lab was so we could try to do a demo on using this tool here and do a couple voting so you guys can get the idea of kind of how to do the voting. So what I'd like to ask you to do next is in the chat, give me one idea that you would like to go back and implement. Tell us a little bit about who your stakeholder is, what the business impact is, and then also a little bit about the level of effort. And what I'll do is pull some ideas out here so that we can actually fill out the tool and have you participate in the exercise here. So if you would, go ahead and give me a chat of an idea. Maybe it, you know, wasn't something directly from BB Dev Days. Maybe it's something already on your plate that you're thinking about doing. There we go. Okay, so thank you, Lashana, for being the first response there. Aha, I love that I can copy and paste from the chat to the tool. Again, I know it's hard to read. You may have to go to full screen. Any other ideas or examples? Okay, good. Thank you, Nicole, for that. So we've got a second idea. Nicole, again, using Power Automate tools to prepare solicitation funds. Dan wants to create a tile for users to see summary data on a constituent record. Okay. And then we have the use of AI acknowledgements. Now, I recognize that this list of ideas may not all be related to the same thing, but they do look like they're all generally about maybe fundraising, productivity. So we can see those ideas here. Oh, I think these two copied over as white text instead of black. So let's fix that and change. Okay. What I was hoping is that maybe a couple of you would like to come on stage with me and actually do this activity together, or we can stay in chat in case you're being shy. But if you wanted to, what I was hoping we could do is have you come on, talk about your idea, and then the group, once they hear the idea, can do the voting, and we'll actually go through and score a couple of these. If you would be willing to join me here on stage, all you have to do is raise your hand, hit the raise hand, and then I would be able to invite you to come on. I think we have a small enough group here we can all participate in the voting, but it may be helpful. Thank you, Dan, for being brave participant here. So Dan, I think I added your idea to the list, but go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your idea, what impact you think it might have, and the level of effort.
Sure. So Dan Snyder, Director of Advancement Services at Bennington College in Vermont. And so this is kind of an idea that combines some of Alex Wong's presentations, if anybody has seen it. But he was showing a way that you could kind of build out. He was showing just like a table, really, or a matrix, where you could select, like in a slicer, what information you wanted to see on a report. So you could have a whole bunch of information, but people could select from that. And so that's kind of the idea, is serving that up, but right on a constituent record. So.
Okay. And how, so what is the business impact of that for your end users?
I think that allows the users, particularly maybe gift officers or people, to have instead of like looking through a variety of tiles for the information that they want, they could have it right there. But also it could be the information that each person would want. So one gift officer may want to see a certain type of information, a researcher may want to see something different, and advancement services may want to see something.
So time saving, self-serve, get the most important data up to them. And what do you think the level of implementation is? Let's use days as the factor, including teaching people how to use the tool. Less than 30 days?
If that was the only thing I was working on, yes.
That's a good question. That's a good factor in how should I think about this? The idea would be yes, if that was the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that was the only thing, yes, less than 30 days.
Okay. And just one thought on your idea there, you might go do the multi-voting to ask your stakeholders, what information on the constituent record would you like to have as input into which tile you build? So there's a great use case in using both tools back together. Okay, so let's have everyone in the chat based on the impact to providing information to fundraisers on a score of 1 to 10, 1 being little impact to 10 being high. How would you score business impact here? And yeah, Dan says you won't hurt us feelings. This is practice. And this is why I love doing this exercise in teams, because, sometimes people are shy and don't want to speak up in a meeting, or they don't, are afraid their answers might be different. Okay, great. So I'm seeing answers ranging from 6 to 8 in general. And just to keep this moving so we can get to Megan, I'm going to score this a 6. So I'm just going to say it looks like overall, or I'm sorry, between 6 and 8, I'm going to score this a 7. So I'm going to just take the midpoint of what I was seeing in the chat. If we had a big discrepancy, if somebody was less than 5, somebody else was greater than 8, I'd have them explain their answers. Okay, how about level of ease of implementation? Now, Dan said it might take him less than 30 days. Maybe he has a large university of fundraisers. Would you guys agree with that? So do you think this is easy to implement, a 1, or hard to implement, a 10? And I know you may not know all the details from the presentation, but go ahead and give me a vote on ease of implementation.
And Jackie, just a time check, you have about 7 minutes.
Thank you. We'll have time, I think, for one more, and then we'll get into the survey. All right. So again, I'm seeing some numbers. So remember, in this one, the higher the number, the longer it takes to implement. So again, we would want to define the scale. If 30 days is a long time, maybe in our definition, we said a week would be low and a month could be in the midpoint, 2 months could be higher. So it looks like, again, we've got a range here from about 5 to 7. So we'll take the midpoint here of a 6. And that item would end up being a parking lot, because that 6 pushes it above the midpoint Doesn't mean you wouldn't go do it. You just might want to do a little more planning. So, all right, Megan, let's try one more. Go ahead and share with us your idea, which I believe was on the AI acknowledgements.
So we have a real use case happening right now where we have some donors who are upset they're not getting acknowledged in a timely manner.
Oh,
so
good.
I think just enabling the gift officers to help us create those automated emails that will be generated essentially even in almost real time, thanking the donors for their gift. So they know we thank you, we've received it, we're working on it. I think even just this morning, I passed on the link to the Blackbaud University to my annual fund person so that they can get in on some instructional led training, and then sent my slides from the training as well. So I'm hoping to get this up and running as soon as we can.
Okay, so this is assuming you have the access to the AI. It's built into, I assume, RENXT, the acknowledgement. What do you think the level of effort to train and get adoption is, though, with that group?
I know Case actually had a presentation, and some of our MGOs aren't fully on board with having AI do that for them. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get them on board.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead and I will ask you guys to vote. If you'll give me both the keyword business impact score and then ease of implementation, I'll update the tracker. But for right now, I am going to wrap it up. I'll still take some Q&A. Let's go ahead and finish voting on this. And while we're doing that, Stephen's going to launch the survey. Again, thank you for your time. I applaud you for all of the improvements you will go back and make for your teams and for your constituents. But I hope you find these tools helpful. I challenge you to go back and use the tool, at least in one of your upcoming projects. And do I need to stop sharing, Stephen, for you to launch the survey?
Nope, it's been launched.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, I think most people have said thank you. Hopefully you'll take just a minute to do the survey. And I hope you find these tools useful. Oops. Okay. All right, Stephen, I'm going to leave the stage.